Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I'm your host, Adam Cousins. And if you remember, we sent out some tweets and Instagram posts asking everybody that wanted to come on this show from the UK scene or American scene, if you're a promoter, whether you're a promoter, a wrestler, wrestling personality, whatever, send us in. We'll get you on the show. This man has done it, but he's not wearing his sunglasses, which I'm a bit, he said it was man.
You know what? Anyone who wears sunglasses indoors is normally a genius, but I have left them in the car because I'm not as organized in the evenings as I should be.
Absolutely shocking. I know this man from Ignite. He is the master of ceremonies at Ignite, but he is a wrestler as well. And interesting enough, and we'll talk about this, did attend a WWE tryout. So I want to get some information about that. But this man here, it says Rich in the corner, but we know him as Sunshine Skip. Good evening.
Hello, Sunset Skip here, going coast to coast like butter and toast. It's a pleasure to be here at Hitting the Turnbuckle.
It's great to have you on, Skip. And I say, normally we're in the ring on Ignite. We're in the ring together at some points, or at least last two shows, we're in the ring together. But generally, I'm on the outside, Skip's on the inside, doing all the master ceremonies. We'll talk about that in a minute, but let's start about the journey of Sunshine Skip. You mentioned, obviously, you had your training session in like late 2001, but I'm interested more about the character side of things. You sent me a long list of stuff, which was great. So I do my research, but it's great that you've given me all this because it helps me put things in place. But you did send me a couple of interesting bits about the sort of the origin of the character from Scott Hall to Mafia Botchamania. But talk to me about that. How did it all begin?
So, Sunset Skip, he's almost like a mythical figure in pro wrestling. He's the only wrestler to wrestle across every single continent in one day. With time zones, lots of travel, it was very possible. I power bombed a polar bear in Antarctica. I wrestled in an active volcano in Hawaii. So Sunset Skip's able to go all over the world. He goes where he goes. He's like Idris Elba in that sense. So he does what he does and goes where he goes. And he's just a mythical creature. He's the folk hero of professional wrestling. And then when Sunset Skip started to kind of be fleshed out and brought into life, there are some real cool people who were able to call upon their memories. And like I said, two of the most notable were Scott Hall and Matthew of Botchamania. And funnily enough, I saw on the Facebook memories and everything, it was actually 6 years ago yesterday that I was fortunate enough to meet Scott Hall. And that was wonderful for him to kind of give me some time and talk about Sunset Skip, his memories of him, because this isn't the first incarnation of Sunset Skip. He's kind of always regenerating. He's almost like I suppose the Doctor Who of pro wrestling. So this is his current form, and who knows what the next form of Sunset Skip may well be.
Indeed, and I'll be looking forward to seeing. I was looking forward to some of your notable opponents, and there's quite a few there. There is Mr. CJ Carter at Ignite,
absolute legend.
Absolute legend, yes. There's the Crowleys of this world. Charles Crowley, we are allowed to call him the spectacular twat on this.
Are we allowed to? We're allowed to say the T word. Is there like a kind of a remit on the rude words?
Yeah, there is no remit on this show. We are allowed.
So we get like 6 bums and a booby. It's wonderful.
That's right. We can say other than the old C word. So he's lucky he's not the spectacular. That's maybe the word that we'd have to get. We might not be able to get away. But there's one in particular here. I know Johnny Kidd and Jody Fleisch. I do a lot of independence with them. You worked a Rumble, and a certain Tommy Dreamer was it?
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
So that was for AW. God, this is going back all the way to 2006, and this was there for AWA UK, which was run by a wonderful promoter called John Chapman. And it came about, I think this was around the time that WWE were first starting. I think Tommy Dreamer was still in talent relations and doing selected independent dates. So he came in to do this show, and there's a few talents that he was looking at on the show. And then my young and overexcited self was in the Rumble at the same time, and just kind of honed in on Tommy Dreamer and thought, well, this is an opportunity I'm not going to turn down to kind of go toe to toe with someone like Tommy Dreamer. And it was great. We just traded a few shots with each other. There's a great photo. I think I put it up a while ago on Instagram. There's me very young in my fairly terrible white tights and black boots, which I thought looked good at the time. And Tommy Dreamer's got just a normal I'd call it a school chair, the ones like the
Yeah.
plastic curved back with the four legs. And he's put one of those over my head and leg dropped them onto me. So he kept his innovator of violence moniker going. That was something that was definitely very true that night.
Did you take a DDT from him?
I didn't know, but he lit me up in the corner with some punches and a bionic elbow.
That's all you. Well, there you go. That's all you need. That is a great claim to fame with Tommy Dreamer. He was talent relations at that time as well. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm very interested in, and I want to get to it because we was literally talking a minute ago before we started.
Yeah.
WWE tryout time, 2016 in Dubai. I mean, what a random place to have a tryout. Talk about what is a WWE tryout actually like?
So this was very interesting because this was around the time when they were looking for the expansion across the world.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk prior to it by the guys that were running things out there that they were looking to set up a hub. And this was essentially, it was like the first wave of what they were looking for. So they came in to where I moved over to Dubai to the United Arab Emirates to live for a couple of years, a few years back in 2015. And then I got in with the local wrestling scene after a few months living out there. I thought I'd finish, but you never really finish with wrestling. You just take a longer breaks between matches. And that was only about 4 months between matches. But I got out there and so WWE were coming and they sent it was the head of talent relations at the time, Canyon Seaman. He came out to have a look at wrestlers because they were looking to scout for the big, I suppose it was the public tryouts they had at Dubai Opera House. And this was almost the first wave. So in this session when we were there in the evening, that we did matches, we did drills, we did promo time. So it's all the sort of things that you would expect to see. But this was a completely unique time where we were in front of two of the big brass in talent relations. There was Canyon Seaman and his number two, a fella called Paul, whose surname always escapes me. But it was absolutely wonderful to have that FaceTime with them. And when they're out in the Middle East, they're not looking for a bald European guy. If they want a bald white guy, they could just shout outside the performance center and they'd have 50 turn up within seconds. But it was an absolutely incredible experience to kind of have that time and get some really good feedback. And it's the whole wrestler cliche, getting feedback from things, but to actually pick the brains of, one of the kind of top brass in terms of hiring and firing for what they were looking for. And I went into this knowing full well at the time that I was advancing in years, I'm a little bit more than 25 now. And that I wasn't exactly what they were looking for because it ultimately is kind of a casting. You're going to have people in mind that you're looking for, but it was still an incredible opportunity to have that time in front of such important people in the industry.
I think like people will always say if they could have 5 minutes in front of, the WWE or
hugely.
Triple H or Tony Khan or whoever it now, Scott D'Amore in Impact Wrestling or whoever, they would snap your hand off. And the fact that was it an all day thing? Was it a couple of hours? How did it work?
It was a whole evening. If I remember rightly, we got there from like 6 o'clock in the evening and it finished 11, 12 o'clock. So it was a whole evening thing. And it was very much kind of a dipping their toe to see what the region had in terms of talent, in terms of coaches, in terms of facilities. And then that moved on to the big publicized tryouts that they had at Dubai Opera House, where they pulled in talent from all across the Middle East and North Africa. So as I said, that was the time when that was the hub that they were looking to set up there.
I wouldn't rule it out them going back.
It's a huge market for them.
Is there over there? I don't know. I mean, Middle East, yeah, Middle East would be massive for them. Let's rewind now because I wanted to talk about that, get out of the way straight. Because I have some questions. We're going to throw some random questions at you in a bit.
I love it.
To those. So late 2001, your first, you walk into, I think, was it Dropkicks?
It was Dropkicks, yes, indeed.
You did. I've had my things there in my time in Dropkicks as well. Didn't last very long. Didn't about a month. I last. Anyway, I learned very quickly and very painfully that it just wasn't for me. Hence. You walk in there late 2001. What was your expectations walking in compared to the expectations after you had your first session?
There was a combination of not knowing what to expect because part of you never really know what you're going to walk into with any sort of facility. I mean, now if you look at somewhere modern like the Square One gym in Hitchin that UBW has, it has got absolutely everything you could want. It's a fully fledged gym, full size ring. It's incredible. And at Dropkicks, I walked in and they had, I think it was an 8-foot ring set up on the floor, and it was a piddly little ring. But I walked in and I was absolutely spellbound. There was a proper, in my interpretation, wrestling ring, and there were wrestlers that I recognised because around that time I'd gotten into British wrestling. I, always a bit of a always want to make sure that I know what I'm getting into. So I started learning who the moves and shakers were in wrestling at that time. The FWA were really kind of breaking out. So there was guys that I recognised. There was the New Breed, there was Curve. I think there was a very young Sticks and Ross Jordan who had just kind of started to make their ways in wrestling as well. So I went in and I was just wide eyed and like, this is incredible. And after the first session, it is the thing that everybody says after a first wrestling session. You have no idea how much it's going to hurt. I went in knowing it would hurt because I had a background playing rugby and martial arts when I was younger, so I expected it to be physical. But honestly, from the top of my skull to my tip to the bottom of my toes, absolutely wrecked for days. But I loved it, and 22 years nearly on, it's still going strong.
Still going strong. Yeah, I don't think people really do understand that pain. Even now, I mean, even them doing it now, it's not, they still get hurt. It's just how to protect yourself from a serious, you're getting thrown around by 250-pound guys. It ain't going to be, or you're getting thrown off a top rope or throwing off a ladder. Doesn't matter. You're still getting thrown off of something and you're still landing. It's just how to protect yourself from serious injury on a landing. And it is a timing thing as well.
Oh, God, yeah.
Which people don't understand. Let's talk mini skip. So let's go back to maybe a Chris Packett skip. Who was your idols growing up watching wrestling?
Oh God, so many. I mean, I grew up in the early 90s. So for me, that was the golden era of wrestling, So I grew up watching the Hulk Hogan's, the Ultimate Warriors. I remember really vividly as a child, Mr. Perfect was starting what we now know as a babyface turn. But I remember at the time I was so excited. I was speaking to my uncle who had, I think he just kind of entertained me by pretending to like wrestling to be kind. And I was explaining to him in great detail, like I think 9-year-old would, about how I want Mr. Perfect to be a goodie so I can start cheering him. And I remember my uncle bought me a WWF coloring book, and I left all the pages of what I called the baddies at the time blank, apart from the Mr. Perfect one. And I felt really naughty coloring him in, but I was like, I wanted to be a goodie, so I'll color him in. So Mr. Perfect was a huge one. And then in terms of forming my wrestling style, there's Roddy Piper, Randy Savage, Dusty Rhodes, Sting, Barry Windham, all of these kind of all the wrestlers of like the late 90s, late 80s, early 90s have really kind of formed who and what I am, because I still watch stuff like that. Ravishing Rick Rude is somebody that I watch constantly because he's just incredible. And then it's funny how even now I talk with close friends. There's RJ Singh, Ashton Kerr from the New Breed. We talk like probably on a minute by minute basis. We still talk about how great wrestling from like 1993 WCW. We just like, oh, look at this. This should be used in this way. And it just, even now, there's massive influence from stuff that I grew up watching.
Yeah. I mean, you probably grew up, I was born in 84. So
yeah,
around about the same, by the time I was getting into it, I vividly remember watching something around my nan's, and it was like I wouldn't say WrestleMania 6 press conference or something, and the Ultimate Warrior was wearing a suit. I'll never forget. And it was like he still had the whole warrior look, face paint. Yet he was wearing like a black suit, and it totally looked different. But a bit like you though, I was a big fan of like the Kurt Hennings, Texas Tornadoes, Jake Roberts.
Jake Roberts is another.
And I was a big fan of the sort of the Intercontinental. Bret Hart became that. Yes. He was into it because he was a tag with the Heart. So I used to like Demolition as a tag team, and the Rockers, Power and Glory, Romeo and Hercules were two good teams as well. As you get older, did that sort of, because for me, although I watched and I idolized Austin and Rock and people, mainly Austin, when I was growing up in school. But did it kind of change for you in terms of that? So the people that you were saying idolize were mid card, top level, mid card level to make. You could put them in a main event and they wouldn't go.
Yeah.
Did that change as you got older, or did you kind of stick to that kind of the people that you like watching?
I would say that certainly as I've gotten older, I will still stick to watching the Roddy Pipers, the Randy Savages, and the Dusty Rhodeses, and they were guys. They were headliners everywhere, but they weren't like, they were the guys that worked with Hogan, worked with Warrior, worked with Flair. But to me, they were the true standouts. They were the glue which held everything together. They were they were superstars who were just absolutely vital for every part. So, And then guys like, I suppose, the underneath guys like Pillman and Wyndham, they're the ones who are workhorses, and they're the ones who I look at and like they're the ones who really are just masters of the craft. There was a term told to me when I first started about carpenter wrestlers. And that's not to say Brian Pillman or Barry Windham are carpenters, who are guys who kind of build everything underneath, but it just shows the importance of everybody from, a low tier guy to the absolute megastars of the industry, just how vital every role within them is there. There's a great match that RJ Singh and I shared with some trainees recently, and it was Terry Taylor and Dutch Mantell. Just a TV match from 1987. And honestly, God, it's about 8 minutes of wrestling perfection. It just, pulling back the curtain a little bit, the psychology is absolutely perfect. And it's, to them, that was just a Tuesday night match in Lubbock, Texas. And the next night they were in Oklahoma. And the day after that, they were in Dallas, wherever, whatever. And it was just two professionals who know exactly what they're doing. And that, as I've gotten older, that's the influence that I just think that's what wrestling should be.
I remember you sort of go look at that. I remember the Roddy Piper Bret Hart match at WrestleMania. I think Bret won the Intercontinental title off of Piper. But if you watch the backstage interviews and we talk about the psychology and the story, it built up, and Piper could talk his way out. He was brilliant on the mic. I loved it. And that match for me, I always go back to that match. If I want to watch one of those matches, they always say that Bret Hart was the easiest worker because he had it all planned out from and that's the match I go to quite a bit to watch. Speaking of matches, your debut match now. So we've gone back to mini skip, we've gone back to full on. Here we go, sort of young skip, but wrestling skip.
That's it.
And it's now a battle royal in Stevenage.
It was, yes. I was proverbial lamb to the slaughter. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Biggest promotion in the country, biggest promotion in Europe at the time, full calendar. And I managed to get onto this battle royal. And good God, I was out of my depth. for the first few years of wrestling, dear Lord, I was so out of my depth. I didn't have decent gear. I didn't know what I was doing. And I was just a rabbit in the headlights for so long. And it was I say humbling. I didn't go in with a big ego, but it just really kind of made me think you need to step up, you need to improve, you need to learn all of these kind of things to get better.
Yeah, it would have been an interesting. I suppose at least it's not would you have preferred a single match, or would you think that's a kind of a good match to debut because there is so much going on?
I think Rumbles are great things for young wrestlers to start out in because you've got a chance to shine, but largely you can be anonymous. So if you don't have a great performance, if you get nervous, if all of the things that could go wrong, if they could go wrong, you're one of 10, 20 people that are just busybodies in that match. So I always think for young wrestlers, things like battle royals and rumbles are excellent learning opportunities.
Yeah, they definitely are. I think not long after that, couple months, you had your first singles. Same promotion against, is it Hayde Vanson? Was that his name?
Yes.
So talks about first single match. What are the nerves like when you just before you go out there?
Oh, huge. Absolutely petrified. And it showed in everything I did that night. Like I just said, I was well out of my depth in every way possible. And it showed. I was naive and young, and I thought I was ready to do a lot more than I was. And it was a learning experience where I realized, okay, you're not ready yet. So time to improve, time to work and put the work in.
You did, and obviously we'll touch on your championships and another different match that you was in shortly. I'm going to break off and we're going to do a couple of questions now, just random ones that I've been thinking of. So we mentioned the WWE tryout, and Impact Wrestling have got the gut checks coming back.
Yes,
the tour next month. I want you to pick 5 wrestlers in the UK scene, mate, that you think should. I'll do it as well. That you think should go and try out for Impact.
Okay. Now, I think a few are ones which will be on not necessarily the TNA radar, or Impact radar, but ones who I think are people who deserve a real opportunity. I think there's real obvious ones. People like Charles Crowley will certainly be looked at. I think Joe Kessler's another one as well. But thinking of people who are kind of bubbling over, people who are waiting for that bit of exposure, I think Adonis Payne's certainly one.
That was on my list.
Yeah, he's absolutely brilliant. There's probably going to be a lot of overlap with people from that are familiar to Ignite shows. I think Jackson Hart is another one. I think
Ooh.
he's somebody who's got a real great package, great look, really, really great in ring, crisp in ring. Artemis, I think she's got so much upside as well. Um, Another person who I think is massively undervalued on the UK scene is Ricky Calvey. He's a regular for UBW Sacrifice. He is, I've often called him the closest thing that British wrestling has to Bobby Eaton. He is
Right.
just an absolute consummate. I mean, he'll be very, very humble. As wonderfully arrogant as he is in the ring, behind the scenes, he is so wonderfully humble. And he'd probably be humble to kind of hear that on a public forum. But he's a wrestler's wrestler. He's an absolute dream. And then a fifth person who's, if he was still active, I would say CJ Carter would be absolutely perfect for it because honestly, CJ is and was so good. And it's just an absolute damn shame that kind of injuries hampered him from kind of achieving things that I think he was. I think this phase now, this kind of 2022 to 2023, 24, 25, I think this would have been the time when CJ would have really, really broken out because he was absolutely incredible in the ring. Just again, much like Ricky Calvey, an absolute pro's pro. But if I had to pick a final person who is active, God, that's difficult. Um,
Your bonus
Someone
is in
who's
the post, by the way, from CJ for that.
so yes, yeah, I hope so. I hope if he's watching, I'll get a bonus
He
for
will.
the
He'll watch it.
November 12th. A little plug as well. Come on, dude, I'm doing well here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of somebody who's a bit of a curveball, somebody who's completely different to anything that Impact have, and somebody who popped into mind as a complete curveball would be Big Effing Joe.
Oh yeah.
He's getting all of his he's everywhere in terms of the deathmatch scene, but he just popped into my head as somebody who's a completely unique package, and he'd certainly be someone to stand out. Or God, there's I mean I could rattle off probably another dozen talent.
I'll go for some. I'll try and differ it now. Obviously, Big F and Joe was going to be on the show that of a company that doesn't pay their talent, but it doesn't know that's going to happen.
Ah,
Not naming names on that one, PW. But anyway, of the names, I think, yeah, obviously you've got your Okus, you've got your Ricky.
yes, of course. And I was thinking beyond RKJ,
Yeah,
Oku, and
yeah,
Sunshine
Zach.
Machine.
Yeah,
These are guys who will get their plaudits all the time because they're top of their game right now. So I was
yeah.
trying to think of yes, people who are a little bit outside the box.
Well, you took a few of mine, so I'm not. By the way, I'm not offending the ones now because Skip's already chose you. Means I can't choose you. So
Oh no,
that.
let's offend Adonis. Tell him he's terrible.
Oh yeah, he's absolutely terrible. Yeah, yeah.
Awful human.
One of them I'm going to say is one of them that's definitely not say breaking out at night, but is reaching really at really high levels. Taylor James.
Yes, yeah, him and Jack Torino are both
Yeah.
incredible.
So,
They, to
yeah.
me, are just desperate for that. I think they're that one match that will make them, if that makes sense. They are
Yeah.
of a standard where they just need that one match in front of that one audience, and everybody will go, Jesus, these two are good.
Yeah.
Because they are, they're absolutely incredible. So definitely agree about Taylor James there.
For the X division, I'm going to go Nino Bryan.
Yeah.
It's an interest. I think he'd fit that rather well.
Certainly.
Or smash mouth, strong style, Corey McRae.
Yeah.
I think he's
two excellent choices, three excellent choices.
He's ready. I think he's ready now. I really do. I think he's one of those ones where if I heard he was tapped up or signed up, I know he hasn't broken out into Progress properly. I know he's done ring work and stuff for Progress, but he's ready already.
Yeah.
I would say
he's superb.
I've got to pick another two more now, which it is tough because you nicked them.
It's tough to narrow down, isn't it?
It is tough to narrow down because I mean the British talent is absolutely ridiculous at the minute, so it is very tough to narrow down. See, I really wanted to say Jackson and Adonis; they were my other two. You got me.
Yeah.
I tell you who would have had a great shout if she wasn't injured. Rain Leverkusen would have got in.
Rain definitely. Aluna Blue as well. Somebody
She
else
would have been an outside shot. Yeah.
We could have probably done 5 female talents because I think Aluna Blue, Kira Chimera, if we're thinking just people from Ignite. God, it's funny when you just kind of hone in on where you spend a lot more time and then you think, Jesus, there's a lot of talent just there. But yeah, I think Rain, if she wasn't injured, would have been a bit of a shoe in to have a look at. And then, of course, if we're going kind of more obvious picks, we mentioned Crowley's partner, tag team partner, Alexis Falcon.
Yeah.
There's so many people who, Warren Banks, he's another one. But
KN Lane for an outsider.
KM Lane's fantastic. Mike Bird, thinking of KM Lane's coach. Mike Bird is another absolute pro. So Mike is tremendous in everything he does. So
So
yeah, there's God, we could
could go
probably rattle
on.
off 50 people, and
Yeah.
even then there'd be another 50 who would think, oh God, yeah, they're a shoe in. They should definitely be there. So
So
it's definitely
Impact
certain
Wrestling,
events.
we've done your lists for you. So
We
just
have. We'll take some royalties,
yeah,
just 20% each of everyone's finder's fee.
indeed. Look, we'll move on to another question. So I always ask this because it stumps a lot of people. Some a couple of them have got it straight away, and some of them don't. What's your favorite wrestling entrance music that you've?
Oh, of my own or of
No, not your own. Oh,
Oh, okay. Oh God, right. First one that springs to mind would be the Ultimate Warriors.
yeah, yeah.
That's
So
the first one that jumps to mind.
what
You listen to that and you feel like you could run through walls.
you could you literally did in some cases. What about entrance presentation? So the actual
Ooh,
presentation of their ring walk or
I always loved early Chris Jericho in WWF with
okay,
arms open,
yeah,
back to the audience pose, and the turnaround with the spotlight lighting on him there. Of course, Undertaker. You can't forget the Undertaker's entrance. I remember I was at a WWE live event, God, early mid 2000s, and even all the disinterested parents who came along to take their kids to the wrestling stood up and paid attention to him. So
yeah.
that just shows what a captivating entrance he has. Um, Hulk Hogan, I think,
Yeah.
based on my childhood as well. And Bret Hart, just if I could have been front row to get those sunglasses, I'd have loved that.
Yeah, definitely. I would say the one of them that does me is that because I was there at WrestleMania 25, the Shawn Michaels Undertaker entrances from
Oh,
Heaven and Hell.
fabulous!
That was, I mean, I done five WrestleManias that
Amazing.
pretty much consecutively, and those were the two entrances I still vividly remember to this day. I wasn't that drunk. I didn't. To be fair, I didn't really drink out there anyway. But yeah, those are the two. My entrance music it really changes. Like going back years, I even used to like Mr. Perfect just because it was just
Yes,
like
love that.
it was just so fitting. Obviously LODs. More
Yeah,
recently, like the NWO or Edge
yeah,
or Triple H.
yeah.
Stuff like
Metalingus is unreal theme tune.
that. Yeah, I
When
could.
that hit, when he came back at the Rumble, that would have been that's one show that I would have loved to have been at.
Yes, I don't. But although I don't think I could have held it in if I was there.
No,
I was.
I'd have just screamed like a girl and just
Yeah,
gone crazy.
I would have done the same. And that's the one. Unfortunately, that's the one event I don't think now, due to health, that I'd ever be able to see unless they brought it over here. So I don't think I could fly. I was actually going to be meant to be going in January, but
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be allowed to do that, which is
Ah.
suck. It's the one event that I wanted to do. I've done all the WrestleManias. I've done SummerSlam.
The Rumble was a big one.
Apart from All In, because I couldn't go there because I was in hospital. So All In is the
Oh
other one.
no.
Literally got discharged on the Friday of Sunday was going to be the show. So
Yeah.
I suffered from heart failure, had a week in the hospital, got discharged on a Friday, was like, great, I'm still going all in. And it's train strike on Saturday, so I couldn't get back.
Oh
And even if I could
God.
on the Sunday, I don't think Wembley Stadium would allow me in with a chemist full of drugs
No. No.
and a laptop as well. They probably
Jesus
wouldn't let
Christ.
me. So unfortunately, so that's next year. I'll
Yes,
definitely
for
be
sure.
attending regardless.
Get on the men soon.
Even if I go into cardiac arrest at Wembley Stadium, at least I'll be there.
Oh, God.
I don't want to think about it, but well, speaking of pay per views, what is your favorite pay per view?
Ooh.
Doesn't have to be a year, just the favorite, but no.
The event. So
The
Royal
one that
Rumble.
you watch. Yeah, Royal Rumble.
Yeah, Royal Rumble always is. It's always going to be the one that just pulls me in. I used to love the traditional Survivor Series events.
They were
That
good.
was always one. But yeah, Royal Rumble every year. It's just such a spectacle, isn't it? The Rumble match and
Yeah.
it the there's a everybody who gets into this is still a fan. So you watch that lead up from Royal Rumble to WrestleMania, even
Yeah.
if you kind of haven't watched, you'll pay attention to that because it's towards the big show. It's they call it the road to WrestleMania for a reason. So it pulls you in, and you want to see, and you start kind of getting a bit. Oh, I wonder who's going to win the men's rumble,
Exactly.
who's going to
Yeah.
win the women's rumble, and I think even now, you hear wrestlers talking about it, and you chat with the wrestlers about it, and you think, oh, who's going to win the Royal Rumble? Is it going to be whoever for Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania? Who's going to be, is The Rock going to come back for Royal? Yeah, it gets really exciting around Royal Rumble time, and also the spectacle of the Rumble match.
Yeah, that is it. It's my favorite because you don't, and you also don't know who's coming out. If you stay off the internet, I always make sure that weekend I
Yes.
black out internet. I don't check. I don't want to know because I want to watch it and be like, Jesus,
Yeah.
like with Edge, that was a shocker for me.
That was incredible. I think my favorite return was Kevin Nash a few years back,
Yeah,
and Mr. Perfect in the early 2000s when he
2002.
came back. Yes.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, that was a great one. I mean, Edge was my. I mean, I've got Edge tattoos. I'll show you it. I'll show
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I've got Edge tattoos, so I'm a massive Edge mark. I think the one he didn't return at the Rumble, but one of my favorite returns again was the Triple H one from the first quadriceps,
Yes.
MSG, and the
He was
Austin one.
enormous then, wasn't he? Absolutely huge.
Yeah,
He'd eaten really well when he was off.
he did. So he didn't skip any meal days on that one. And the Austin, I think it was at Backlash when Austin come back from his neck injury. They were the two other non-Royal Rumble. But my other favorite one apart from the Royal Rumble was Money in the Bank.
Yes.
Just because again it's a ladder match and you want that cash in, or you at least got that thing of there is going to be a cash in or two now.
Yeah. There's that spectacle, isn't there?
Yeah, and it's just when is it going to be the cash in? Let's get back to you now. So 2010 January, your first championship. So you've built so long. You've had this. It was about 9 years since or 8 years, or 9 years since you started training. You've had all these matches now, and then you win. Oh no, you've won your first title. What in that 2005 was your first.
Yes. So first title was tag titles in 2005, and that was special because that was with a guy who's my trainer and mentor, and we formed a tag team. We had an absolute blast as a tag team. We were a pair of just knobs. Was probably the best way to put it. Just a complete pair of knobs. We called ourselves the Players Club, and we thought we were great. We really just had a blast antagonizing audiences and people. We started a little bit of a riot the night we formed our team because he was quite a liked babyface in that small. It was only a very small promotion, kind of regional promotion, but he was quite a liked babyface, and I was a very disliked bad guy back in those days before I saw the light. And at the end of our match, when we turned on whoever it was, the other good guys, the audience didn't like it. Just started throwing things in the ring, bottles and cans, and there was a chair or two chucked in. And I was really wound up. I was a little bit more highly strung when I was younger, so I started throwing things back and getting a bit more antagonistic. And before we knew it, we were being dragged back into the change room, which mercifully was up a flight of stairs. We went out for a battle royal later on because we did our singles match. We did the turn, and then we did the battle royal later on. And by the time we were eliminated from the battle royal, it was looking quite ugly. So we were told by the venue managers, "You've got to stay up here until everybody has left." So we had to kind of hide out there for an hour or so. So that was the closest to the classic Mid-South heat that I think I'll ever.
I was going to say that was
experience.
Like Cornet times with the Midnight Express.
Yeah.
So then I'll mention January 2010, your first singles title. You won that on free time. When you get a championship, and I always ask this, do you feel a sense of there's more pressure on you now because you're the reason the butts go in seats?
Yes, yeah, I think you've nailed it there. You're the focal point, or you are the one of the focal points to it. You're the main reason that people are trying to come to that show. So you need to deliver not only the match quality, but you also need to deliver the performance, the presence, everything there. And you need to, I know I felt it, that I needed to pull everybody up around me. And that was certainly the pressure that I certainly felt around then. So yeah, that's definitely a great way to put it.
Yeah, and then you won that 3 times. One of them is one of the other matches I was going to talk about, Steel Cage. I always find gimmick match because the gimmick matches you got to get the gimmick over. It's all about getting that gimmick. So obviously I wasn't there, so I did. Was it a pinfall submission or was it just climb out? You had to get out of the cage. Was it classic style?
It was a climb over the cage.
Yeah,
You could win through any of those means, but we won by climb over or escape.
Okay. And how do you obviously we always said about pain thresholds of cage matches and any gimmick matches are always you're going to get more hurt than what you would normally do in a match because you as I say, it's all about the gimmick. How do you prepare yourself for that type of a sort of gimmick match as such?
There's no individual preparation for it because I remember still training, wrestling training. I was training at the gym a lot more then because I had different commitments and so I had the time to do that. But I remember stepping into the cage and thinking, Jesus, this is completely different to anything I've ever been. Everything felt, because it was in the leisure centre, as you know, British wrestling has always kind of had its own leisure centre journeyman that I am. But it felt very, very small. You very much realise that you're in an 18-foot by 18-foot enclosed space. The walls looked super high, and as I went in, I was very much aware it's me, a referee, and my opponent in this, and that's all that's going to be in this ring for the next 20 minutes or so. And it was a really, really strange thought because I'd never experienced anything like that. At that point, I'd had countless hundreds of matches and I'd done virtually every kind of match type that there was up until steel cage match. So to step in there for that, it was a genuinely intimidating atmosphere to be inside the ring. So to see it on the outside must have been a completely different scenario as well.
Did you go back to? You mentioned we were fans of wrestling, pretty much the same time. Did you go back and watch a few of those tapes from those years?
Oh yeah, definitely. So every so often I'll kind of go back and watch some of those old matches, and it's interesting to kind of see how I've developed as a performer over that time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would have gone back and watched maybe what a classic cage match, maybe the snooker one when he jumps off the top of the cage or something like that. You didn't do that, I take it.
No, I did. I kind of
did you?
Because you get, I suppose it's almost a bit of homework, isn't it? You look at, I watched a Ric Flair and Roddy Piper, no, sorry, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, and around the time there was a really good Edge and Matt Hardy cage match. Around the time Matt Hardy came back, I think it was on a Raw or a pay per view. But it's just you look at them, you look at the intensity of the match because it's so very different to every other match. You approach it in such a different way because you've got the gimmick, you got the whole story to kind of tell within there. So I always say it's respecting the rules of your universe. You've got to kind of tell that story within it. It always annoys me when you see a steel cage match and for some inexplicable reason they're outside the cage.
Yeah.
And you've killed the story of the match. Why are you going outside of the, this cage is meant to be a final thing. And I know there's variations of it. There's the match where the first person to ask to leave the cage loses, but it's still respecting the rules of the universe. But I've seen some, and I get where it's come from. People have seen the Bad Blood Hell in a Cell match where Kane rips the door off, and then Shawn Michaels and Undertaker go out, and that makes perfect sense because they've had this monstrous presence have to disobey the rules of the universe. But in a steel cage match, it's such a rare feat. In every other match, you can have a brawl on the outside or bring chairs and ladders and tables in. So the steel cage match is the story in and of itself, and you tell the story that is the dangerous structure. And I think if you do anything else, you've killed the story off straight away before anybody's had a chance to understand it.
I agree with that. And my pet hate, and I know you mentioned it, but my pet hate is pinfall and submission. If it's a cage match, I just want you to escape. I don't want to. I don't want a regulation cover or I want it. You're either through the door or over that cage. That's how I would do it. If I was good enough to be a wrestler, that's how I would do it.
The steel cage, the finish to it, it was 11 years ago. I think it's okay. I can give a spoiler away now.
Oh yeah.
But so the finish, I think I gave the guy diamond cutter off the top rope, and then he started to crawl to the door. He had two of his cronies on the outside trying to pull him out. I couldn't get through the door because there's two bad guys blocking the way. So I tried to climb over. Fun little thing. I was absolutely knackered and this cage was enormous. So I'm having to kind of hop up on the top rope to get a bit of momentum. I had an injured knee at the time, so everything's kind of telling me no. I'm terrified of heights for real. So I'm coming over on this cage. I'm absolutely pooping myself. The door's kind of flapping open with these two guys trying to help their guy in. The referee's trying to get the door. They're trying to get everything out of the way. And then eventually, through genuine exhaustion, I just got a couple of steps down and went, well, I'm not going to break my ankle, so I need to drop and get out of this thing now. So, yeah. And it was timed absolutely perfect. Because I think if I'd have held on any longer, they would have pulled him out of the ring. So, yeah, everything was just timed perfectly. So, amazing. Yeah, I'll have to send it to you, and I'll stick it up on my social media feed.
Find it and stick it up there. I'd love to see that. We'll talk about one more championship because you were the first UBW champion. So there's a different thing now. There's winning titles, which is, and we crowned our first turnbuckle champion in Smashing.
Yes, Smashing Mike. What a champ!
What a champ! What a man! What a great.
He's another one for the gut check. How we didn't mention Mike.
Well, I was going
doesn't
to,
get
but
tired.
I feel like favoritism if I do that.
Oh, no, you can never have too much favoritism.
Um,
Another, sorry, go on.
but does that first winning to be the first, like Mike's the
Mm.
first, you can never take that away. Is that more prestigious than say winning a title that say 16 of other people have had first because you are the first ever champion?
Yeah, I would say it is. To me, that's one of my proudest achievements in wrestling, being the first ever UBW champion, because there's been some wonderful champions since Tommy Kyle, Charles Crowley, Hugo Bloom's the current champion. There's been some absolute. CJ Carter, of course, was an incredible champion for UBW, and first ever UBW, first ever wrestler in the UBW Hall of Fame, and it was
Yes.
most well deserved. Um, but being that first champion is something, like you said, it can never be taken away, and it's something where you, again, going back to what you said about holding a championship anyway, you hold yourself as a measuring stick. And even now, I think I really hope that what I did as a champion has set the way for everybody else. There will be champions who have better wrestling styles, who are younger, who are fitter, who are going to go on to greater things than I did. But I was the very first, so I've really kind of laid that foundation for, I suppose, the standard that I hope that the UBW Championship represents.
I
And there's
definitely
been
think
so
that.
many people who I think have really, really held that. So I'm very, very proud to say that.
Yeah, exactly that. And Mike, you should be very proud that you're our first.
Yes, he should.
One other name I was thinking of for gut check, and it's literally just coming to my head because he's a pain in my ass. Mark True. Just so we can get
Oh,
just so we can get him out of the UK.
yeah, ship Monk True off to Canada because
Yeah.
he's absolutely. Kieran Lacey is not, honestly, we
He's
could
an
spend
absolute.
the whole night talking about people who are outside shot for the gut check. But yeah, Mark True's absolutely brilliant. Honestly, he's an absolute shitbag in that ring. He just antagonizes everybody, and you think, oh God, you're such a pain, and then you realize, Jesus, you're an incredible wrestler.
And that's
So
the
yeah,
most annoying thing about him.
oh,
He's so good.
phenomenal in the ring. But
Yeah.
I'm sure he won't mind me saying a terrible, terrible human to everybody who watches him.
Apart from if you give him a baby bell like my other half did it. Let's move away from it. You was in a film.
Yes.
Go ahead. Tell us.
So this came about around the genesis of UW, and somebody who was completing their film studies degree approached us with a short film that he wanted to do about wrestling. It's called Corazon de Leon, and it starred a few UBW wrestlers at the time who were coming through. And interestingly, the person who played the child version of the lead character was Mark Fowler, Todd Carty's
That's
son.
fine.
Yeah, so it was his first time. I don't know if he's acted since, but that was his first role, and that was really good because, as well as the acting part in there, I played the coach. We had a couple of really cool scenes that we went down to a boxing club in North London at the time, filmed the whole coaching scene and things like that. And I also did I suppose we call it the choreography, myself and Ash. We put together a lot of the wrestling sequences that were seen in the final cut of the film. We did a big filming at the University of Hertfordshire in their concert space. This was, early, what was it, 2011, 12, maybe 2013, long time ago now. And so there wasn't the production that wrestling had. We didn't have Tron screens, we didn't have LED screens, and they were all present for this filming to give it that big fight look for the final piece. So that was absolutely brilliant to be involved in. And the guys who were involved in it, there's a guy called Sav. He was the director and producer for it, and eventually they did their showcase. So we went to a premiere in a really cool private cinema in West London. So that was
Brilliant.
a brilliant kind of way to close that chapter up.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Did wrestling help with that in a way? Because obviously wrestling is a form of acting, and it's not necessarily with the moves, but your character,
Yeah,
your train. Did that help you with the role in the film?
I think so because where everything I was doing was wrestling in the wrestling space. It was something that I was all completely familiar with, and I just had a camera behind me filming it, or I had to film it from a different angle, or I had to say it a bit louder, a bit quieter to catch it on film. So everything that I was doing was fairly familiar. There's very little there's very little dialogue in the film by design, and there was one scene where I had one scene of dialogue and ended up getting cut because the golden rule when you're filming is don't look into the camera. So of course I'm staring directly into the camera on each scene, and I'm being told don't look in the camera, don't look in the camera. Gotcha. So then when it comes time to deliver my line, I'm like, don't look in the camera. just staring intently into just every part of my brain just went, I've got to stare at the camera now. So then I managed one take of it where it's like, yep, the first take was the one where I didn't stare directly into the camera and like, yep, we'll have to do that one because that was by far the best. So yeah, everything. And that was the kind of thing that you hear about wrestlers doing that. We're so used to everything being one take because everything we do is live in the moment. So we can't go back and redo a spot. We can't go back and redo a line. So everything that I know myself and the wrestlers we did in there, virtually everything was on the first take. And then when we did the second take, that's when things would start going wrong because you start getting in your head or you start thinking, oh, how did I move for this one? What did I do? So you lose that automaticity and it stops being a natural performance.
It does. That is very interesting. Before we start wrapping up and talking about Ignite and your the master of ceremonies there, a few more
Yeah.
questions for you. If you could choose now, right now, there's obviously so much American wrestling out there now. There's WWE, there's AW, Impact Wrestling, NWA. Where would Sunset Skip fit?
Ooh, I mean, the obvious answer would be NWA, that
NWA.
classic studio style.
Yes.
You know, the recreating the territories, the interviews in front of the podium,
Yeah.
the whole look of it. But I grew up watching WWE, WWF, so
Yeah.
you can't say no to the big time to the show. You know, you'd never turn down a Marvel movie, you'd never turn down playing for Real Madrid. So you can't say no to the WWE. But I'd say thematically, the perfect fit would be NWA because it is just that old territory feel. You know, that would be
Yeah.
something. But yeah, so
Interesting.
the answer is I'll work for anybody if the
Well,
money's
you
right, bud.
would. Yeah, exactly. That's the right answer, really. But let's talk Ignite. So you are the master of ceremonies. You know,
Yeah.
you've had a lot of fun with microphones on the times that I've been on.
Oh God, yeah. It's a good thing I've got a loud voice.
It is. How do you say, because obviously from a wrestler to the whole, basically the announcer of the show,
Yeah,
you can sort of play to the character, you play up to the crowd really well. We don't want to
yeah.
talk about Gray and the raffle chants that he gets
Oh
going.
God, terrible, terrible.
But how is that for you? Do you like? Does that be still? Do you still get pumped for doing that?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I said to CJ, but we talk quite a lot about it because he's like, oh, "Are you still enjoying it?" I'm like, "Mate, I am absolutely loving it because it's a completely different avenue." I did some announcing very, very early on in my career, but a handful of shows when I was injured, just to kind of keep my toe alive. And I was an announcer rather than Sunset Skip being the announcer. But yeah, I absolutely love it. And I come out, I'm just as pumped. I feel a bit silly coming out to entrance music because I feel like I'm a bit, hey, look at me, I come to my entrance music. But it's all part of the presentation and it's, the Larry jacket's a part of it. And I always try to think I want to toe the line where I am being the performer Sunset Skip, but I also don't want to kind of be like, hey, look at me, it's my section, it's no more. I'm presenting the segues between the important stuff, between the matches. That's why it's very much put everybody else over with it while still kind of doing it through creating a big presentation myself because I think those things would then go hand in hand. If I was just a faceless announcer, there wouldn't be the grandioseness in terms of putting everybody's announcements in front of the audience.
Exactly. I think in the next Ignite show we should get a Sunset Skip section going. Like
Yes. Everyone can wear the sunglasses. They can buy sunglasses available at every merchandise table. I've got to get that plug in. But yeah, Sunset Skip section, everyone wearing the sunglasses. I've even got t-shirts for sale now as well. So come on. Sunset Skip section at every show, not just Ignite.
Not just Ignite. I'm just biased to Ignite.
Shameless salesman that I am.
That's the best part because we're going to head right into that now, and you're going to get a chance as we're wrapping up to where are you up to next? What are you up to next? What are your appearances? Where can they get hold of people? Where can they get hold of you? Not people can get hold of you, sorry. And also, if you're available for bookings, where do they go? And if you have anywhere where your stuff is on sale other than events, tell us all.
Absolutely right. So I'll start with probably the biggest one. So upcoming events, I've got a really busy October and November, which is wonderful. A huge one for me is In the Ring, October 7th, DOA Wrestling, a loser leaves town match. In DOA Wrestling, I've had some thorns in my side for a long time in the name of Stephen Farrell and Brad O'Brien. So now it's winner takes all. They stole the Pan Arabian Championship from Sunset Skip, something which was very dear, and now it's a time to get that title back, put up or shut up. And if I don't make it, Sunset Skip's gone from DOA Wrestling, somewhere that's become a home over the last couple of years. So that's on October 7th in Great Yarmouth. That's one that I'm very, very much looking forward to. There's Wrestling Society in Swindon on the 28th of October as well. That's another place that's rapidly become a home for Skip. Then I've got another Wrestling Society date in the 4th of November, 19th of November, Wrestling Society in Cardiff. And then there is, of course, the huge Ignite Wrestling show on November 12th, where Sunset Skip will be returning to the MC duty. So there's a lot of really, really cool stuff. And then there's a couple of things which are to be announced for November and December that I haven't quite thrashed out yet in terms of what's happening or is it being announced yet. So keep your eyes peeled on all the social media channels. You can find me on internet. Of course, it's the internet. Jesus Christ, I'm doing well there. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at Find Sunset Skip. I've signed up to TikTok, but all it is me watching food videos because that's what pops up in my algorithm. And then every so often I look for something really weird like a cleaning brush, and then that messes up with your algorithm. So I love having weird stuff pop up on my algorithms, things that don't make sense. A dog eating raw food popped up the other day, fell into that wormhole for ages. But I digress. In terms of see, this is what happens when I give them the platform to talk. It just gets weird. And then, of course, in terms of shilling anything, I'm pretty lazy. I don't set up a big cartel because I don't want to have stock of stuff in my spare bedroom. So just buy sunglasses and t-shirts and stickers from me at the shows. And if you don't want to, come on over, give me a fist bump, say hello. I'll always have a chat with people because we all love the same things and just let's have a good time.
Exactly. And are you available for bookings? Where can I get you? Is it a DM?
I absolutely am. Yes, slide into my DMs or find sunsetskip@gmail.com. I'm pretty active on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, so slide into those DMs there. Always available for bookings, just depending on the dates and whatever happens there, because 2024 is already getting booked up. I've got stuff in the diary up until May, which is incredible because up until the last few years, it would be a few weeks before. Can you do X date? Yes or no? But now I've got stuff, what's May, 7, 8 months in advance into the next year. And over the last post COVID, that's when that's happened, where I've been fortunate enough to be able to have the diary that far in advance. So, yeah, keep your eye out for Sunset Skip in 2024 and onwards. This train's never going to stop.
It's unbelievable, and it's great to hear that a lot of people like yourselves, Skip, and a lot of the other wrestlers are already booked up for next year.
Definitely.
And we're talking to Adonis.
It just shows how thriving the scene is. It's wonderful to know that.
It is brilliant. Now, I'm going to quick plug for us quickly. Funnily enough, we are talking to the DOA head, Alec. He's going to be on the show soon. We're also, I can say it now because we're pretty much down the line. We are going to have Raven on very soon. He's just had shoulder. I'll get the words. Jeez, I'm like you. Shoulder surgery. He was meant to have it in August. He got pushed back till the 13th of September. So he's only just had the surgery. So we will get him on, but it's probably like to be a month or two. So he needs a bit of time to heal up, which is standard. We can say that we've had communication from 3 released WWE superstars to say yes, but they, of course, we cannot name them, and they won't be on until their compete clauses are finished. So that will be a bit like yourself, Skip, what you're saying about into next year. Those are likely to be late December, early January. I can't say who they are. You may get the nod off when we finished up here. I may.
All very exciting.
Also, events that we're attending. Sunday, I can't wait. I've been invited down to Cardiff to go to Slam Masters. The guys we sponsor beers and beatdowns over in Carnage, and Blanche and Dangerous Danny have invited myself and Rachel down and the team at Buckle to go and see that. All includes the meet and greet, so we are going to be meeting the likes of Ace Austin from Bullet Club, Subculture, Wild Boar, and loads. Man Like Drees. It was another one.
Another wonderful talent,
yeah, for that list. That list is ever growing. Going down there. The following week, I'm with Jurassic Pro Wrestling's 2nd anniversary over in Harwich. So they're going to be celebrating their 2nd year as a company.
My guy RJ's on that one.
He is. He's taken on Kelly Six in a match, one of the matches, because Kelly's never had the privilege of having one of his DDTs.
He will.
I'm sure he will.
And do you know what DDT spells?
Well, go on.
The end.
The end, exactly that. Corey McRae's fighting KM Lane on that as well, actually. So
That'll be a cracker.
that'll be a cracker. They've got the Indominus final there as well, so get yourselves over there. After the end of the month, I'm at RCWA over in Raynham with CJ. Actually, I'm going with CJ and myself, Rachel, and CJ heading off down there to see that. Then the following week, I'm at Progress Wrestling, and I'm still hoping, praying the Lord that Eddie Kingston is going to be there, although he said he's not doing any independence anymore at the minute. Hopefully, he drops the titles before then. I can he'll be there. Of course, I'm going to be at Ignite on the 12th for Mike, and I can't say who he's fighting, unfortunately, yet.
Top secret opponent.
Big secret opponent. I should be announcing that. Hopefully next week, could be the week after. That's up to CJ. I'm not going to overrule CJ on
He's the boss.
He is the boss man, so he gets to do that. I'll be at Progress. I'll be at Rev Pro as well. We go down there quite a bit. 229. We're going to be seeing a lot of Rev Pro action as well. I think that's about it at the moment. There's Act 2 will be coming on soon as well. We've rescheduled Act 2, so they'll be coming on. I think it might be next week, the week after. So I'll have to double check that, but we'll let you know. But Skip, it's been brilliant.
I've been a pleasure, and thank you, but
no, it's not a problem at all, guys. As Skip said, if you want to book him, slide his DM. We recommend you do. He's a fantastic guy. I can't think highly enough of Sunset as the wrestler and the announcer and the man. So please go and do that. But for this episode of Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast, it is finished. He has been Sunset Skip. I have been your host, Adam Cousins, and yes, I have as well. And until next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe, and good night.